Good. So now job design. If you quite remember last week, I indicated that job analysis has two main outcomes, which are job description and job specification. Closely akin to these two main outcomes is job design. In other words, after gathering your job analysis information, it is incumbent on you, the HR planner or the job analyst, to use that information to design your working environment in order for it to be more intrinsically motivating to the employees who will be performing the task at their various offices. So today's initial aspect of my lecture will center on what job design is and the various types of job designs. When we talk about job design or designing a job, it is basically a conscious process through which the job analyst organizes tasks, duties, and responsibilities into a unit of work to be achieve certain objectives. In other words, when we talk about job design, the HR manager or the supervisor who has been tasked to embark on this design is basically organizing the various tasks that are supposed to be performed in an office so that it will achieve a common objective. And again, it will also be intrinsically motivating to the job performer. Ideally, jobs should be designed in such a way that it will motivate employees to execute the tasks that they are expected to perform to the best of their ability. And so several avenues or opportunities are there out of which the HR manager can capitalize on to design jobs. Now, at the back of your mind, I expect you to note that when we talk about job design, it is a deliberate action that the HR manager embarks on. In other words, it is a calculated attempt to achieve a particular purpose. So if the thinking does not go through it, then at the end of the day, it will not achieve the desired results it intends to achieve. And when I also say that job design is meant to be a deliberate activity, it is also expected to be structured or coordinated so that it will reduce idleness, monotony, and boredom at the extreme end of employees. Okay. Now, there are several typologies of job design. So there are several approaches that you can use to design a job for employees to perform in a particular department or in an organization. At this level, I'll be introduced. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
I think the network, it comes, it's on and off.
Really?
It's okay now.
Yes.
Okay, so what was the last thing you heard me say?
Okay.
What was the last thing you heard me say?
So it has to do with the job analyst.
The job analyst. Hey, so baby, I'm making in a month away. Okay. Let me share my screen again. Can you see the screen? Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Good.
It's showing.
So when we talk about job analysis, job design, basically we are referring to a conscious attempt by the HR manager to structure the various tasks, duties, and responsibilities that are supposed to be performed within an organization so that they will be coordinated to achieve a common objective. Is that one clear now?
Yes, it's clear.
Good. Now, so when we say these activities need to be coordinated to achieve a common objective, what are we trying to say? We are simply trying to communicate that the job designing process is a conscious effort which is calibrated to achieve a set objective. And what are some of these objectives? Ideally, jobs are expected to be designed to be intrinsically motivating to the performer. So the way the task will be coordinated within a department or across departments, and the way inputs and outflows will also be generated within and across departments should all be cognitively programmed. This means that the job performer must first of all understand what it is expected of him or her to do and why they are supposed to perform a specific role at one point in time. They must also understand what their outcomes. They must understand how their outcome contributes to be the input of another department or another employee. And so basically, when we talk about job designing, we expect that it should be deliberately structured to reduce issues like idleness. There shouldn't be a point in time where people will be idle at the office without contributing to organizational success. So one of the prime objects behind job designing is to reduce idleness. Two, it is also to introduce or reduce the issue of monotony, the degree to which the performance of a particular task is one way. So once you introduce some form of creativity into it, then it is expected that at any point in time, the individual will be satisfied. It is also expected to reduce boredom, the extent to which an employee will become bored performing a particular task. So all these things happens to be the object of job designing. Now, I am saying that there are several typologies of job designs, but at this level, I am introducing you to just three. The three are job enlargement, job rotation, and job enrichment. I'm saying that there are several types or approaches you can use to design a job. And each of these types have an objective it tries to achieve. But for the purpose of your level, I'm introducing you to just three, which are job enlargement, job rotation, and job enrichment. And when you start doing organizational theory and design, then you will be introduced into rich details the various approaches and typologies of job design. All right. Good. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
Good.
Yes.
So we are now
Yes,
going to look
please.
at the various types of job designs. The first one I'm going to introduce you to is what we call job enlargement. Job enlargement. And as the name implies, it simply means you are at the moment combining previously fragmented tasks or duties to create a new portfolio which contains all these previously fragmented duties. In other words, A task that was previously performed by about 2 or 3 people is now being combined to create a new label which will now be performed by only one job incumbent. Is that explanation clear? Hello, is the explanation of job enlargement clear?
Sir, please can you
No,
go
please
over?
come again.
Hey, you, I don't know if Masumu Nehemode was say you. I'm saying that when we say job enlargement, when we talk about job enlargement, people have their microphones on. All right. When we talk about job enlargement, the idea behind it is very, very simple. It means that a previously smaller job is being recalibrated for it to contain additional roles. In other words, previously base of jobs. So that is why I say previously fragmented base or units of job is now combined together to create a new portfolio which will be performed by only one job incumbent. So for instance, a task that was previously performed by Sheila, Seidu, Gertrude, Jennifer is now being put together to be performed by Gideon. When we do this, then we are talking about job enlargement. So it's just like the name. You are trying to enlarge the job description of the job holder. And the reason behind job enlargement is simple. Typically, when employees are hired into an organization in their first year or so, it is expected that they must have not mastered the task to their fullest potential. And so if you overwhelm them with a lot of duties or responsibilities to handle at that point in time, then it is likely that they will fail on the job. Not simply because they are bad candidates, but simply because they are now trying to master the task. But having monitored and observed them to realize that they are now successfully performing these roles or duties without any challenges or hindrance, then you can gradually be adding additional roles to it so that you can make good use of their potentials. That is why we employ job enlargement in the first place. Now, another name for job enlargement is what we call horizontal loading. Should I repeat myself? Another name for job enlargement is what we call horizontal loading. It is called horizontal loading because the additional task that will be added to an existing job are all found at the same level, which is at the horizontal level. So it could be that it was a task that was performed by a colleague employee in the organization, and we are now taking it from that employee to be added onto what you are now doing. So it means that you are picking bits and pieces of duties and responsibilities at the horizontal level and compounding them into one job description. When you do that, then we say you are embarking on horizontal loading. Good. The second type of job design that I'm going to introduce you to is job rotation. Job rotation. Now, when we talk about job rotation, it is also very much simple, and it simply means that an individual is moved from one task to another or from one department to another, or from one section or unit of the organization to another part in the same organization. Are you listening? When we talk about job rotation, it simply means that the job increment is gradually being moved from one aspect of the organization, which it could be a marketing department, to a sales department, to an HR department, to the public relations department, and so on and so forth. Now, this intention of moving the employee around in the organization is done with some amount of systematicity. In other words, you don't shuffle the employee around haphazardly, but there should be a logic or an objective behind every movement that you embark on. Usually, job rotation is employed when, for instance, an employee has huge potentials that you want to nurture so that at some point in time, they will be occupying the managerial position. And for that matter, you want the employee to have a better purview of all the job proceedings in your organization. So in that regard, you can say that at this point in time, I want you to assign you to the sales department so that you'll be privy to the nitty-gritties that goes on there. Then at another point in time, you will assign the same candidate to perhaps the marketing department for them to also be privy to what goes on in that department. So that when the time is right for them to occupy their managerial position, they will have a comprehensive overview of all the things that happen in the organization. Another reason why we use job rotation is also that, for instance, you have employed a candidate into your organization and you are not so certain where their skill sets will actually match or fit. So in that regard, you want to explore to verify which aspects or which department in the organization they can actually contribute their quota. So you can, in that circumstance, you can use job rotation by testing their efficacy at the various departments so that you will compare their performance outcomes across the departments and come to a conclusion where you want to actually allocate the person to go and function. So for instance, you have finished, you've applied for a job with your first degree. And you know, even though GTVC will give you degree with areas of specialization, it doesn't mean areas where you did not specialize, when you are given the nod, you will not be successful. The main object of undergraduate education is that you are given bits and pieces of all the field of the business administration. And so for if in future you find yourself in a marketing field with little on the job training, it is expected that you should be able to be successful over there. Now, assuming you are hired and initially they wanted to use you in one particular department, but you are struggling to hit the ground running. And so they want to align you with another department where perhaps your skill set will be very useful over. In that regard, they can use job rotation to test you at the various departments or units of the organization where you have, where your background has a close overlap with. And based on that, they will decide where they actually fit you with. The last job design that I'll be introducing you to is what we call job enrichment. Job enrichment. Now, there comes a point in the life of every human resource or every employee where they feel that they've been so much loyal to their organization and they have mastered the task which they are performing. And so the organization must promote them to a higher level where the job is quite challenging, and also it comes with a lot of responsibility and recognition. In such circumstance, we employ what we call job enrichment. So the basic tenets of job enrichment is that a new portfolio is created for the job increment, which is usually higher than the previous portfolio they were occupying. And in this new portfolio, the employee is given a higher responsibility that comes with a lot of recognition, and it also ignites the person's intrinsic motivation. Usually, job enrichment comes with a pay bump, so there is an increment in their salary that they were previously receiving. Accordingly, whereas job enlargement can be construed as horizontal loading, job enrichment can be construed as vertical loading. Is the distinction clear? Hello?
So please come again.
Okay, so let me take it one more time.
Yeah.
I'm saying that when we talk about job enrichment, we are basically creating a new job portfolio. And in this new portfolio, the responsibility that comes with the job is quite higher than the previous one that the employee was occupying. And this new portfolio also commands a lot of recognition and power. The reason why we employ job enrichment, or we create this new portfolio for job increments, is that it gets to a point in their time or in their career path where they realize that they've been consistently loyal to an organization by working for a longer period of time. And the current position that they are performing does not command the respect they deserve. And for that matter, they need to be promoted to a new position that comes with additional responsibility and which also nurtures their career growth. Because in job enrichment, we are talking about a lateral progression, which is from a lower position to a higher position. We say that it amounts to vertical loading. In other words, you are loading the job of an employee vertically. This is totally different from job enlargements, in which previously fragmented task at the horizontal level is now compounded and given to one person to perform. So that is why I'm saying that unlike job enlargement, which denotes horizontal loading, job enrichment denotes vertical loading. Is it clear now? Good. Now, so back to job analysis. What are the types of information that the job analyst collects in order to prepare the job description and the job specification? Depending on the nature of the job that is performed and the rudiments it comes with, the information can even go beyond the one you are currently finding on your screen. But primarily, the job analyst is usually interested in information such as the working activities, which include how the task is performed, why the task is performed the way it is performed, when the task is performed in terms of the reporting line, when you report and when you close, and so on and so forth. So all those fall within the purview of the working activities. Then another information that the job analyst is interested in is the behavioral aspects of the humans that perform the jobs. And in there, we are referring to the communicating patterns, how the employees relate among themselves, how they communicate, how they even record their pertinent information, how they work, how they, if it involves some facial expressions in terms of communication, how it should be even exhibited, and so on and so forth. Again, another information that the job analysts pay keen attention to when they are gathering job analysis data is the sort of machines or tools that are used to perform the task. So as a lecturer, what are the various tools that we need to be successful on our job in this current day that we are experiencing COVID-19? So we realize that you will need a laptop. You will also need some sophisticated teaching avenues like Zoom. You will also need earpiece, or if you like, headsets, and so on and so forth. So all those will become the tools that will make my work successful. Then performance standards. When we talk about performance standards, they are basically the benchmarks or the performance index along with one can be said to have done his job well or not. In other words, on what basis will you say someone was successful in performing his task and another person was not successful? So all these details will become necessary for the job analyst. Then the job context. When we talk about the job context, we are looking at the environment within which the task is performed. Does the environment demand that it is noise-free? Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good,
Yes, we can hear.
good. So all those things fall within the job contents. And then the last aspect that I want to draw your attention to is the human requirements. And when we talk about the human requirements, it's basically referring to the credentials or the details that one must possess before they can be successful on the job. So do the job increments require some form of technical education or university level education? Or is it the kind of task that even if they are illiterate, they can be trained to be successful on it? Again, must the person have some number of years of working experience before they can be successful on the job? If yes, then the job analyst will require all this information so that in future, when they plan on recruiting and selecting job applicants, they will take all this information into consideration. The implication is that if the job analyst fails in gathering the right information, then it means that in their attempts to design a job or even prepare job description and job specification for an impending job advertisement, then they are also going to get it wrong. That is why we say that the work of the job analyst does not need to be compromised in all aspects. Now let's quickly look at how the job analyst or the HR manager can gather job analysis information. In other words, when the HR manager is ready and wants to make sure they have a comprehensive understanding of all the information on the various tasks and duties that are performed in their organization, what methods can they employ to gather this information? And there are a number of them, but at this level, I'm going to introduce you to just 4. Now, the trick is very, very simple. The 4 methods you are seeing on my screen now are not totally different from what you've been taught in your research methods class, except that now I'll be going into its nuances to demonstrate how the HR manager must use it to gather job analysis information. So in your research methods, when it comes to strategies you can use to collect information from field, strategies you can use to gather research data, you can use interviews, questionnaires, observations, diaries, and so on and so forth. It is the same knowledge that we are going to apply here, but it comes with some few derivatives. So as we go along, I'll be explaining them. Now, so let's take job interviews or interviewing. So the first approach or research method that can be used to gather job analysis data is what we call interviews. In interviews, what happens is that the job analyst, having identified the department or the unit where they want to gather job analysis information, invites employees that are working and knowledgeable on the job to come forward and share their experiences with him or her. So primarily, the job analyst will be asking series of questions, and usually these questions comes with follow-up questions, just to clarify why a particular job is performed the way it is performed, and when it is performed, how it is even performed, and so on and so forth. Additionally, the job analyst, in an attempt to understand the job better, will be asking questions about the educational background or the qualification of the job incumbent, whether he is an SHS leaver, a first degree holder, a master's degree holder, or the person has no academic background but was trained on the job to perform it. Now, the job analyst, before he commences the interview, must also sit down to develop what we call an interview guide. An interview guide. And basically, when we talk about an interview guide, it is a written down thematic areas on an issue that the interviewer wants to discuss with the interviewee. Simply put, if I want to understand how students behave in a particular class, and I am going to interview the students, what I'll do is that before I go, I will have series of questions and series of thematic areas clearly written on a paper. And this paper, which contains the questions or the thematic areas that I want to ask questions on, is the interview guide. And when I visit the interviewee, or when I invite the interviewee, I'll be posing the questions one-on-one to them. So a typical question could be, how long have you been performing this particular job? Another question could also be, what time do you report onto the job and what time do you leave office? Another question that could typically feature on an interview guide could be, what do you like about your job? And so on and so forth. Now, an advantage of the interviewing method is that it grants the HR manager, or in this circumstance, the job analyst, an opportunity to pay a sober look or a sober attention to the facial expression and the non-verbal cues that the interviewee will be projecting. I'm repeating it again. An advantage of the interview process or method of gathering job analysis information is that it assists the interviewer or the job analyst the opportunity to pay attention to the facial expressions, the body language of the interviewee as they communicate. So sometimes you can ask an employee a question and they will be nodding in affirmative, but their facial expression will be communicating otherwise. So which draws your attention that there is some amount of ambiguity which you need to clarify. So that is about the interview process. Now, a disadvantage of the interview method is that it is actually time consuming. You can imagine if in a department or in an organization, you have thousands of employees and you have to communicate or interview them one by one by inviting them every day and so on and so forth. Then it is going to take a huge amount of time before you will be able to gather all your information. The analysis process too will be very, very difficult because at the end of the day, you will be transcribing huge data sets. So that is about the disadvantage of the interview method. The second method is what we call the use of questionnaires. In some books, they caption it as surveys. So questionnaires can also be represented by surveys or survey method. Now, the questionnaire method is quite simple. What it means is that the job analyst sits down and writes all the pertinent questions they intend to ask the employees on a sheet of paper. Then they provide answers to all these questions on that same sheet of paper. Then at the appointed time, this questionnaire will be circulated to the employees for them to fill. An advantage of the questionnaire method is that when you are dealing with multitude of employees, even in millions, you can easily disseminate it to all of them simultaneously, especially in this current dispensation where you can use technology to design the questionnaire. You can be sending it to them through their emails or even on WhatsApp. Okay, so if you can remember last semester, I sent an electronic version of a questionnaire to some of you to help me fill it. That is a typical example of what a job analyst can use to gather job analysis information. So preferably, most job analysts go for the questionnaire method over the interview because they are able to simultaneously gather large pool of information within a short period of time. But it comes with its own disadvantages. One is that it can be also time consuming. When we say it can be time consuming, it means that when you deliver the questionnaires to the respondents or the employees, they will take forever to respond to you. In some circumstances, you even have to be calling them back to remind them to check their email or their WhatsApp messages to kindly respond to your questionnaires. So in that circumstance, we can say that it can be time consuming. And again, even if you print them and circulate it to your employees in your organization, it comes with huge amount of cost in terms of the printing cost. All right, so that is about the questionnaire. Then we also have the observation technique. Observation technique simply means that the job analyst decides to go around the organization by moving from department to department, unit to unit, to physically inspect what happens over there. So this presupposes that you'll be in your department, then the job analyst will show up, introduces him or herself, and indicates that they want to come around and gather job analysis information by merely observing and recording what is happening. Now, the challenge of using the observation technique is that sometimes when employees see you as an intruder or an alien, or basically an authority who they are not very much familiar with, they are not likely to demonstrate their true tendencies or behavior. So in that regard, you will be observing them all right, but you will not get their true you will not get their true nature or their true behavior. Again, it can also be very, very time consuming, because just imagine you are moving from departments to departments. And as a job analyst, you are doing all these maneuverings and observations yourself. So if you have a huge organizational edifice, then it might take forever for you to get detailed observation. Now, another challenge is that sometimes some of the things that you observe might not reflect what you think it reflects. In other words, you might not be able to understand the reasons behind the employee's behavior. So you might be looking at it and interpreting it from a third person's point of view as an observer. However, if you had gone further to interview the employee, you would have realized that they have other explanations behind their behavior. So to augment the observation process, it is always advised that you do interviews or you administer questionnaires in addition to your observations. In that regard, you will be observing issues from the first person and then the third person point of view. Then the last one is the use of diaries or logbooks. The use of diaries or logbooks. And I'm very, very sure that most of you have your own personal diaries that you use to perform your job. Now, when we talk about the use of diaries or logbooks, just picture a security person at a security post who is chronologically recording all the daily happenings they are observing on their job. So at one point in time, a car comes and parks in front of the building, stays for some amount of time, and the car leaves. Then the security jots this down. Then at another point in time, another customer walks into the building to make inquiries. Then the security records this down, and so on and so forth. So the basic tenets of the use of diaries is that the job analyst shares diaries or logbooks to the employees and tasks them to chronologically record all their daily proceedings as far as their job is concerned. An advantage of the diary method is that it can help the job analyst to gather huge amount of information, particularly if the employees are keen and take active part in the recording. Now, it can also be said to be an opportunity for the employees to actively participate in the information gathering process, because they are now giving their feedback on how they perform their job, why they perform in the way they do, and so on and so forth. All right. Any questions so far? I'll pause here for questions to be asked. If you do not have questions, then let me proceed. Hello? Any question?
What is
All right.
Hello.
Yeah, hello, go on. Okay. Now, so like I mentioned earlier on, when the job analyst is successful in gathering the job analysis information, they rely on that information to prepare what we call job description and job specification. And in this job description, they are basically detailing out the duties and responsibilities that come with a particular job. Conversely, with job specification, the job analyst is detailing out the educational background and the experiences one must possess before they will be successful on a given job. Consequently, the human resource planner can rely on this information to embark on recruitment and selection. So in recruiting, they will invite applications from a certain crop of job applicants. In their selection or screening process, they will also delineate the best candidates from the pool of job applicants using the information they generated from the job analysis work. When it comes to performance appraisal, the job analysis has already provided information on the key performance index. In other words, the various standards that has been set for each job and why those standards must not be compromised. So it becomes an important avenue for employees' performance to be appraised or evaluated. Moreover, when it comes to job evaluation, which is basically about the degree to which values will be assigned to the various positions or jobs in an organization. The job analysis information will assist the HR manager to decide why the managerial positions will be paid higher than the entry-level positions. It will also inform the HR manager to decide why perhaps the CEO will be paid higher than the security man in an organization. And all those things fall within the umbrella of job evaluation. Once again, when we talk about job evaluation, we are basically assigning values or worth, relative worth or value to a particular position or job in an organization. The last aspect is that information gathered from job analysis can be used to provide training for members of an organization. And this is so because it will provide a comprehensive knowledge to the job analyst, the HR manager, and the human resource planner, particularly, to know why certain tasks are performed the way they are done, and again, how those tasks can be fine-tuned with the changing business environment. So if the business environment evolves and it becomes imperative for them to embark on some form of training, then they will rely on the job analysis information to tailor the training program. So that is all about job analysis. Any question before we move on to the main task for today. Okay. So today, we are going to look at human resource planning. Human resource planning. Now, human resource planning, hello, can you hear me? Good. Human resource planning Hussein, mute your microphone. Isa Hussein, please mute your microphone. Human resource planning, good. So, if you quite remember last week, when I was talking about some of the functions that the HRM department performs, one integral part I mentioned was the human resource planning function. And the main objective of human resource planning is to gather the right number of employees with the right skills, experiences, and competencies in the right job at the right time at minimum cost. Now, let me break it down. Before you create any department or units in an organization, and you fill all these units with human resources to perform their roles or duties over there, it is important for the HR manager to know why those departments are necessary in the first place and how those departments will assist the organization to achieve its corporate objectives. So the human resource planning component ensures that at any point in time, an organization will have the right number of employees. So here I'm referring to the quantity of employees that need to perform a particular task. And these employees must also possess the requisite knowledge, skills, and abilities so that they will be able to deliver when they are given the nod. Moreover, these employees too must be hired and given appointment letters to start working at the right time. In other words, you can't do recruitment and selection exercise this year and expect to use the employees next year. In that regard, you will be incurring unnecessary costs to the organization. So when we talk about procuring these right number of people of right quality at the right time, we are simply saying that you need to hire their services and let them start working at the time where you need their services. And all these things must be managed in such a way that it will be cost efficient. It wouldn't be too costly to embark on this exercise. So basically, the human resource planning is the process that ensures that you are able to achieve all these things I mentioned in a cost-effective manner. Please, is it clear?
Yes, it's clear.
All right. Now, this human resource part of an organization ensures that the business production requirements are met in an efficient and effective manner. Now, when we say the business production requirements, we are basically referring to the roles or responsibilities that have to be performed, the non-human resources that must be provided to make sure that employees will not encounter any challenges in their attempts to perform the job. All right. Now, you all agree with me that in an organization where you have too many people chasing few positions will be a huge risk to the organizational success. In other words, when you have too many employees working for you, but at the end of the day, they do not actually have roles or responsibilities to perform, and so they are redundant, then it will be a huge expense to the organization because you will end up having people receiving salary for non-performance. In the same way, having few hands or few people chasing a lot of jobs in the organization can also be a risk to organizational success in the sense that at any point in time, you will be straining these employees unduly. This presupposes that the HR planner must cogently focus into the future to picture what number of employees they will require to perform a given task. Again, what task and what experiences must they possess? At what point in time do they require them to be on the job? All these things must be carefully thought through at the planning stage so that once it is adopted as an HR plan, then implementing it will not bring forth any challenges along the way. Now, let's make progress. These are some few definitional issues that you can later on look at. Some definitions about what human resource planning is. So when you go on later, you can look at them and identify with the one which you think is more user-friendly to you. But basically, when we talk about human resource planning, we are interested in 5 main things. So I will entreat you to write these things down. When we talk about human resource planning, we are interested in 5 main things. The human resource planner is interested in 1, how many people are required? How many people are required? So that is the quantity of people. Then 2, the quality of people, which means that what sort of experiences, knowledge, skills, and abilities must they possess? So the second issue of interest to the HR planner is the qualitative one, which is the quality of people that needs to be employed or given the nod to work. Then the third one is when these people needs to be hired or when these people needs to be given the opportunity to work. And the fourth is where. Where do you want these people to work once they are selected to come and work in the organization? And the fifth one is cost minimization. In that regard, we are basically expecting that you will identify the right number of people of right quality at the right time for the right place in a cost-effective manner so that it will not be a Herculean, it will not be so much of a financial drain to your organization. So basically that is about human resource planning. Oh, good. In fact, I have even listed it over here. Can you see the portion where I've written NB? HRP ensures that the organization has 1, the right number of human resources, 2, of the right kind or quality, 3, right place, 4, right time, and 5, at a minimum cost. So in a cost-effective manner. Okay. Any questions so far? Any questions so far?
Your sir is clear.
Yes, sir.
Good. Now, please, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So, someone should kindly tell me what you are seeing at the moment.
Human resource planning process.
Good. And what is the first item?
Organizational strategic objectives.
Good. And the extreme left, what is it?
Scanning external environment.
Good. And the right,
Analyzing
internal inventory.
analyzing internal inventory for HR capability.
Good. Then the next item is what?
The middle, we have human resource forecasting.
Very good. The next item.
Then demand forecasting.
The next one.
Organizational need forecasting. Supply forecasting.
Good. Next one.
Survey of people currently available.
Good. Next one.
Estimate manpower gaps.
Next one.
Match demand and supply.
Next.
Supplied restricted hiring.
No, it's rather surplus.
Surplus restricted hiring, layoff, voluntary retirement schemes, and reduced hours.
Good. Now, when there are shortages.
Yeah.
Shortages.
Recruitment and selection.
T&D and transfer.
Recruitment and selection. Yeah.
Then
Yeah. Action.
Okay, and the last one.
Monitoring, control, and feedback.
Very good. Please, can you all see this diagram?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Listen with rapt attention. Please listen with rapt attention. I'm going to explain the human resource planning process. And the reason why I'm very much particular about this diagram is that the first part of the semester revolves around it. Previously, we would have taken each and every part of it and treat it as a whole class on its own. But unfortunately, this semester is very, very short. And again, the course has now been merged to include the human resource development component. And for that matter, we do not have that luxury of time to go through all this. So that is why I'm pleading with you to listen with rapt attention. So when we talk about the human resource planning process, it basically refers to the series of activities that the HR planner goes through before they arrive at the human resource plan. I'm repeating myself. The series of activities which informs the development of the HR plan on behalf of the HR planner is what we call the human resource planning process. Depending on the organization that you are working with, it is possible that some of these aspects or steps in the process may be merged. But because I want to throw more light on the various nuances, that is why I have delineated it in this regard. The first aspect of the human resource planning process has to do with the identification. 1 minute. Yes, Sefako.
So the line wasn't clear first.
Oh, really?
Wasn't hearing you clear.
Is that the case for all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
All right, all right. Don't worry. I'm recording everything, so later on you'll get it, okay? But let me just recap what I just said. And once again, please mute your microphone. Otherwise, it will disrupt.
But my network is. I've
Will,
not enjoyed enough.
otherwise, it will disrupt the class, and again, it will also make your ability to follow the video later on quite difficult. Okay. I am saying that human resource planning process primarily deals with the series of activities that the HR planner goes through before they arrive at the human resource plan. In other words, the HR planner sets forth to develop the human resource blueprint, which will be used to make futuristic forecasts about the human resources. Now, to do this, he has to go through series of steps and activities. And that is what we call the human resource planning process. In this planning process, the first component is what we call organizational strategic objectives. Simply put, corporate objectives. Better still, organizational objectives. Now, when we talk about
Hello,
organizational
sir.
objectives, yes, hello. Margaret, are you the one calling me?
Please no.
Oh, that is why I'm saying all of you, your microphone should be off. Does anyone have a question for me? Okay, so let's make progress. I am saying that the first component of the HR planning process deals with organizational strategic objectives. And when we talk about organizational strategic objectives, we are referring to the long-term aspirations or goals which an organization intends to achieve in future. This implies that anytime we talk about organizational strategic objectives, we are linking to the organization's future self or what they want to attain in the near future. Usually, these strategic objectives might have a timeline to be achieved within about 5 years time to come. So that is the organizational strategic objectives. In my experience, to formulate a robust organizational strategic objectives, the organizational members of the organization, both at the top level and lower level, must all be consulted. So in communication circles, we say the formulation of organizational objectives follows a top-down and bottom-up communication approach. And what usually happens is that top-level management sits down, forge the vision and mission of the organization. Then they will encapsulate the long-term ideals that they intend to achieve or what they want their organization to be noted for in future. This will be communicated to the other levels of management for them to also make their inputs. When it is passed downwards in that regard, then we say you are doing the top-down communication of the objectives. Now, once it goes through the various ladders in the organization and inputs are made, it gets passed upwards again. And in that regard, we say there is a bottom-up communication of organizational objectives. Whatever is at the end of the day communicated backwards to the top-level management, they sit down and have a meeting over it, deliberate further, and decide which ones actually makes business sense and which ones can be put aside for another day use. Once they are satisfied with it, then they adopt it as their corporate objectives. And these objectives are usually codified and disseminated to every facet of the organization so that every departmental unit can also appropriate their departmental objective to fit it. So that is the organizational strategic objective. The HR planner, what is that here is that when he starts the process, he picks these formulated strategic objectives and looks at how he can help to identify, or he can help to use the human aspect of the organization to achieve it. What I'm saying is that after the top level management decides and adopts the strategic objective, the task of the HR manager, the HR planner begins, where he will pick these objectives and try to fashion out how he can use the human component of the organization to achieve it. Now, thereafter, the HR planner embarks on what we call environmental scanning. Environmental scanning. A distinction can be made between internal and external environment of business. Internal and external environment of business. When we talk about external environments of business, we are basically referring to all the surroundings outside the building or edifice of an organization. And some of the key stakeholders that fall outside the external environment include governmental and non-governmental organizations, competitors that will be having direct and indirect relationship with a particular organization. Then there is also the need to embark on. Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, please.
Okay,
Hello.
Yes, sir.
good, good,
We can hear you, sir.
good. So I'm saying that a distinction can be made between internal and external environments. You can't external is basically all the surroundings outside an organizational edifice. So competitors outside there. In some books, they even put the mother union over there. In some books, they put your governmental organizations and regulatory bodies that you'll be dealing with over there. Then when we talk about internal organizations, we are looking within the organizational establishments. And within the organizational context, we are also interested in the human resources. So from the security man working in the organization through the front desk advisor to the CEO or the director under whom you are all working, they will fall within the internal environment of the organization. Now, the HR planner embark on initially what we call scanning of the external environment. And he does so because the survival of every organization is incumbent on how resourceful the external environment is as far as the need for and the demand of human resources is concerned. So the HR planner, in an attempt to scan the external environment, will be considering, for instance, the crop of students that are now being churned out from the universities, competing organizations that are downsizing because of challenges, competing organizations that are embarking on recruitment. Is that clear? All these things will be done within the external environment. Again, the HR planner is also interested in issues like labor demographics. And when I talk about labor demographics, what are the prevailing age range of workforce? Is the population aging or the population is very, very young? In addition to the age demographics, the HR planner is also interested in gender dynamics. Is the population becoming more male-centered at the expense of females, or the population is balanced in terms of the disparity between men and women? In the same vein, the HR planner is interested in issues like religiosity. Is the current population demographics predominantly centered around a particular religious sect, and so on and so forth? All these fall under the scanning of external environment. Then the next task for the HR planner is the scan of internal environments, and which I've captioned over here as analyzing internal inventory for HR capacity. Ellen, kindly mute your microphone. Internal scan or analyzing internal inventory. Fuseni, what do you want to write on my screen? Now, with
So it's not
internal
clear to me. So
inventory, don't worry, you will get there. In fact, this slide, I gave it to you last week, so you shouldn't be struggling now. When we talk about internal inventory scanning or analyzing internal inventory for HR capacity, it simply means that the HR manager is taking a stock of all the human resources currently working in an organization to see whether there is cause for an alarm or everything is going on smoothly. And when I say there is cause for alarm, are they currently in the position where about 50% of the internal workforce are likely to retire in the next 5 years? If that is the case, then there is the need for quickly for them to implement what we call a succession plan. In other words, in the same vein, if an internal scan or internal inventory also indicates that a lot of people are currently occupying positions, but they need future upgrade, then all those stock will come out as far as the internal inventory is concerned. So basically, internal scan is the degree to which the HR planner will take a stock of all the human resources that are currently working in an organization. And some of the information of interest to him at this point in time will be the educational background, qualification, the training needs of people, their demographics, and so on and so forth. Now, based on the information that the HR planner will get on the environmental scanning, that is out of the external and internal scan, then they will dwell on it to embark on human resource forecasting. Human resource forecasting. Now, when we talk about human resource forecasting, it is also a systematic process that helps the HR planner or the HR forecaster to determine, it helps the HR forecaster to determine the need for and availability of human resources. I'm taking it again. Human resource forecasting basically helps the HR planner to project the need for and the availability of human resources. Okay. Now, demand forecasting basically deals with the degree to which the HR planner will project about the need for human resources in an organization. When the HR planner embarks on a systematic activity to arrive at or to determine why they need certain amount of human resources of a particular quality at some point in time, and so on and so forth, then he is embarking on demand forecasting. When we talk about supply forecasting, the HR planner is basically projecting to ascertain how many employees will be available in the organization in the near future. So all the futuristic projections, which helps to ascertain the availability of human resources in an organization, denotes supply forecasting. So unlike demand forecasting, which helps to project the need for human resources in an organization, supply forecasting helps the HR planner to project the availability of human resources in an organization. Please, is the distinction clear? One is looking at the need for, and the other is looking at the availability for. Availability of. So when we do demand forecasting, it means that the employees at the moment are not working in the organization, but because perhaps the, for instance, most companies are currently experiencing a lot of challenges managing their human resources because of the COVID-19 pandemic we are all experiencing. And for that matter, organizations have been admonished to reduce the number of employees that were previously working in a given context. And if that happens, it means that some people, they will have to be using working schedule where some will be perhaps working from home and others will also be working from other adjunct locations. When this happens, it means that at that point in time, when you do demand forecasting, hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Hello.
Sir, we can hear you.
Sir, we can hear you.
We can hear you, sir.
Good. The internet keeps giving me a signal of interruption, so that is why I'm asking. All right. Now, in this era where we are all experiencing COVID-19, you will all agree with me that most organizations are laying off their workforce. Others are also using working schedules so that people will be working from home. Others will be working at a different appointed time. So for the human resource manager to know at any point in time the number of people that they would need to be working for the organization, that component will be the demand forecasting. In other words, if GTUC now wants to know how many lecturers they will need to run their online programs or to embark on the online teaching. That sort of analysis or projection is what we will call demand forecasting. Because in there, we are interested in ascertaining how many lecturers will be needed or will be used to deliver our online programs. And you are all privy to this information that some courses have been merged. Courses which were previously handled by just a lecturer are now being taught by, courses which were previously handled by multiple lecturers are now being handled by just a single lecturer. And this particular course is a typical example. So that would be the demand forecasting. Now, if GTUC decides to also embark on a projection to ascertain how many of its lecturers will be available to assist in the delivery of the online teaching program, then they are embarking on supply forecasting. Whereas the demand forecasting is looking at how many people will be needed to do an effective and efficient job, the supply forecasting is also trying to determine how many workforce will be available to deliver the job. Please, is the distinction clear? Hello?
Yes, sir, it's clear.
Okay, so someone should try and...
It's clear, sir.
Someone should try and distinguish between the demand and supply forecasting for me to see.
Sir,
Uh-huh.
sir, the supply, the demand forecasting
Uh-huh.
has to do with how many employees are needed at a particular point in time to perform an effective job.
Good.
Hello, sir.
Yes, very, very good. Then the supply forecasting.
Hello.
Go
And then
on.
it's that one talks about how many people will be needed to perform effective work like in the future.
No, that one will be how many will be available. How many will be available?
Available, okay.
Yes. So the operative word in the
Okay.
supply forecasting is availability. And the operative word in the demand
Availability. Okay,
forecasting
sir.
is need. Okay. Thank you very
Need.
much.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So right now we have done our demand forecasting and we've also done our supply forecasting. And in our demand forecasting, we were able to project that, for instance, we will need 50 employees to perform the online teaching successfully. Are you following? Now, in our supply forecasting, we realized that currently we have only 40 people working in the organization. Let me repeat myself. Assuming in our demand forecasting, we realized through the projections that in order to achieve competitive advantage or in order to achieve our long-term objectives, we will need at least 50 people to be working for us in the organization. But when we did an internal scan, we realized that at the moment, we currently have only 40 people working for us. Do you see any problem here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what is the problem?
Yes. So we are forecasting like for 50 people, but
Yes.
we have 40, so we are left with an additional of 10.
Very good. Very good. Thank you very much. This means that to be realistic, if we go ahead with the 40, then we shouldn't be surprised if we fail to achieve our corporate objectives, because the forecasting analysis we are doing now indicates that to be successful, we need 50. but we are shortchanged by 10 workforce or 10 employees. Now, when you do this comparison, then we say that you are estimating manpower gaps. In other words, whenever you juxtapose the outcome of demand forecasting with that of supply forecasting, then you are estimating manpower gaps. You are trying to verify whether there is a gap between what we demanded for and what has been supplied. That is the estimation of manpower gaps. Now, as you all agree with me that there will be a problem if we need 50 people and we currently have 40, there is the need for us to resolve this problem. So that is where you embark on what we call matching of demand and supply. And if you are the type that numbers does not speak with you, by matching demand and supply, it means that you are pairing or you are pitching the specific responsibility that are supposed to be performed with the specific individuals that are there. By doing so, you realize that both qualitatively and quantitatively, there is a shortage. So whenever the outcome of demand forecasting exceeds that of supply forecasting, then we say there is a surplus. Mensan can be. Good. We've embarked on both demand and supply forecasting. And I'm saying that whenever the left side, which is demand forecasting, the number exceeds the supply forecasting, then we have a surplus. Hello, Motemenka. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Good.
Sir, we can hear you.
Assuming the demand side, we need 50. And at the moment we have 40. Hey, sorry, it is rather a deficit or a shortage. Please let me rephrase what I said for emphasis sake. Assuming the demand forecasting indicates that we need 50 people to do a particular job, but our supply forecasting indicates that currently we have only 40, then that difference, which is the 10, we call it a deficit or a shortage. A deficit or a shortage. So I'm referring to this side. Someone say 50 minus 40 will give us 10. And because we are demanding 50, but they have only supplied 40, the balance is what we construe as a shortage or a deficit. In the same vein, assuming our demand forecasting resulted that we will need 50 workforce to help us achieve competitive advantage, but our supply forecasting showed that we have 70 workforce, then it means that there is also a problem. And this problem can be construed as surplus. Surplus simply means that we, at that particular moment, the number of people that we have working for us exceeds the number of people that we actually need to help us achieve competitive advantage. There is also a third scenario where the outcome of demand forecasting will be equivalent to the outcome of supply forecasting. In that regard, we say there is human resource equilibrium. So there are three main outcomes that you can achieve after matching demand and supply forecasting outcomes. Either there is a deficit or there is a surplus, and lastly, an equilibrium. We say there is an equilibrium when the outcome of demand forecasting is equal to the outcome of supply forecasting. It means that we were demanding for 50 people, but our survey of the current people available also indicated that we have exactly 50 people, which means there is an equilibrium. Now, assuming we needed 50, but the supply forecast indicates that we have 40, then there is a deficit. Alternatively, if we needed 50 workforce, but the available workforce in our HRM, Human Resource Information System, indicates we have 70 workforce, then it implies there is a surplus. In all these scenarios, there are specific action plans that can be employed to mitigate the problem. I'm repeating it again. In all these scenarios, there are specific action plans that can be adopted to mitigate the problem. Now, so we are now at the action plan. And basically, action plans are strategies or HR practices that can be adopted to reduce the effects of the forecasting outcomes. Now, assuming you are currently experiencing human resource deficits or shortages, then these are the various action plans you can employ. So when there are shortage of workforce and you still want to be realistic by forging ahead to achieve your long-term objectives, you can employ an action plan like recruitment and selection. In recruitment and selection, you are basically bringing more hands onto the job. To be precise, the difference that you observed between the demand forecasting and supply forecasting outcome. So in the initial scenario I presented, the deficit was 10 workforce, which means that you have to quickly embark on recruitment and selection to hire those 10 workforce. So that is one of the action plans you can use to treat human resource deficits. Additionally, you can also embark on training and development. Training and development. And in this regard, we are talking about the degree to which you can upskill your current crop of employees in order to prepare them ready enough for the future aspirations you intend to achieve. And this T&D that we are expecting you to implement should be tailored in such a way that it will increase the efficacy and delivery of employees on the job. In the same vein, you can also embark on transfers. Transfers in the sense that your organization might be having other branches or other regional affiliates where perhaps the human resource over there is in abundance or it is surplus. So you can be liaising with them so that they transfer some of their human resources to your region for them to occupy those positions. Alternatively, whenever there is a surplus, some of the action plans that can be employed to mitigate the situation include placing a ban on recruitment and selection. And that is what I've written here as restricting hiring. In the first place, you are having so many hands chasing few jobs. So it wouldn't be cost-wise to embark on an additional recruitment exercise. Alternatively, you can also embark on layoffs, where people whose services are not currently needed are their contract is terminated, and they are also given the appropriate compensation they deserve. Then you can also institute what we call voluntary retirement schemes, where people that are nearing their retirement age will be given the opportunity to go on early retirement in lieu of they receiving their full package. Another action plan is reducing the number of hours that people are expected to work. So if previously the full-time office hours, and I think currently a lot of companies are practicing it as an avenue of managing working hours of their human resources. Since the COVID started, in reducing the number of hours, if the employees are supposed to work from 8 in the morning to 5 in the evening, then you can negotiate with them, explain the realities on the ground to them, so that these hours will be reduced to, say, 5 hours in a day, and they will be paid according to these hours until you get to a point where you think you can stand on your feet as an organization. Then you continue. So depending on the outcome of your match between the demand and supply forecasting, one of these action plans will be adopted and implemented. So the implementation stage is where we have the action plan. You pick one of these and implement it here. Immediately after implementing, it is expected that the HR planner, and in this regard, the HR manager will continually monitor the action plan they have put in place to verify if it is yielding favorable results. For instance, assuming the initial outcome of the demand and supply forecasting difference was a surplus, and so they place a restriction on hiring, and they've realized that there is currently so much pressure on the workforce in delivering their responsibilities, and that is causing a lot of mistakes and breakages in the working proceedings. Quickly, at the monetary session, it should send a signal to the HR manager to know that something is still not going on well. So at the monetary session, whatever action plan was adopted and implemented is followed to the latter to ensure that it achieves the desired results. Now, the controlling component of the monitoring is where the HR planner the controlling components of the monitoring is where the HR planner sparingly intervenes to change an initial action they have initiated. So for instance, if the initial action was to reduce the number of hours that employees are supposed to be working, and in the course of monitoring, the HR manager realizes it is not yielding favorable results. So there's the need for the hours to be reduced further, or there's the need for the hours to be increased. That comes under the controlling part. Because in controlling, what happens is that we are basically comparing the actual performance with set standard, so that if there is any deviation, you can intervene to make the right input. And the last component of the monitoring is where the feedback that is gotten from the monitoring is implemented into the HR planning process. In other words, we reduced the number of hours of employees. And we are currently experiencing a lot of customer dissatisfaction. Customers are insisting that perhaps we increase it to 6 hours instead of 4 or 5 hours. That will be a feedback loop which will be reintroduced into the action plan. Because the relationship between the last stage, which is monitoring, control, and feedback, and the action plan or the various strategies you implement to mitigate the outcome of demand and supply forecasting is back and forth. We say human resource planning process is continuous and it is not a one-time managerial activity. I will repeat myself, and I know why I'm doing this. Because the last stage, which is monitoring, control, and feedback, is constantly having a relationship with the action plan and other outcomes of the match between human resource demand and supply forecasting. We say that the human resource planning process is not a one-time HR activity, but it is a continuous managerial activity, which means that you can get here and adopt one of these action plans, but it will not be yielding the favorable results. After monitoring, you will go back and correct the action plan, and this back and forth will continue until you get to a pedestal where you think you have achieved your long-term objectives or you are progressing towards the right path. For that reason,
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
yes. Hello.
Sir, please, sorry, my line, my network went off. Please,
Yeah.
sir, I want to ask a question.
Uh-huh.
Previously, you taught us that when it comes to the HR planner,
Mm-hmm.
it's supposed to decide on the number of employees needed
Yes.
at a particular time and
Yes.
the quality needed and all that. So
Yes.
if there is a surplus, does it
Mm-hmm.
mean the HR planner didn't do? Because to me, if there is a planner who should know the number of employees needed at a particular point in time, and there is a surplus, then it means there is a problem somewhere.
Somewhere. Very good. I understand the angle you are coming from, but it is easier said than done. In other words, it is very much easy to project and do all your simulations. But at the end of the day, we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that the business environment is constantly changing. 2 years ago, no one anticipated COVID-19 will bring a lot of businesses onto their knees. But look at what we are facing now. So as an HR planner or an HR forecaster, you can do all your simulations, you can do all your best scenario, worst scenario analysis, and come out with a particular action plan which you think you can work with. But at the end of the day, the business environment and the dynamics in the business environment it will not allow you to anticipate some of these unforeseen circumstances. So there is always room for you to have a backup plan. Please, is the question answered?
Yes, sir, it is. But sir, sometimes too, it is influenced by political.
Yes, there are so many. In fact, it's multifactorial. There are so many answers you can provide to some of these reasons why there will be a surplus or there will be a deficit, especially the surplus. Okay, so that one there, plenty.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sir.
Yes, please, who is speaking? Hello. Hello. Someone mentioned my name. Okay, let's make progress. So, is the explanation I've provided so far, is it okay? Did you understand?
Sir, I was about to make an input.
Good, go on.
Yeah. I was talking about the demand. Could it be that at a point in time when production is ongoing, maybe the product that you are producing, you send it to the market and the buyers or the purchasing supply power has gone down. People are not purchasing as they used to purchase.
Yes.
You know, that time you may need to adjust your workers to be able to meet the targets of the company.
Yeah.
So by that time you can resort to a layoff some of the workers and then make sure you adjust to meet the company standard.
Exactly. So there are so many reasons why there might be a surplus or a shortage. And it's all, that is why at the scanning level, you don't have to do it rigidly, or you don't have to do it with an orientation that the information you are picking from the environment to embark on your scanning is static. In fact, the next day, especially those of you that are into stock exchange, you can make a lot of forecasts this evening. Tomorrow, you go and check the stocks again, and everything is haphazard over there. So the business environment is very much turbulent and unpredictable. And when some of these unforeseen circumstances occur, you must also adjust accordingly. Is it okay?
Okay, thank you.
Now, please, so all the explanations I provided, did you understand it?
Yes, sir.
Very good.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. So I am done for the day. All the explanations,
okay, sir.
All the explanations are here. Yes.
Sir, please, can you kindly put the recording on the platform so that those of us who didn't get everything can benefit?
Please, who is speaking?
This is Sheila.
Okay,
Sir,
okay.
the network.
So
yes.
what I'll do is, this is what I'll do. I will upload the link on the module platform. Hey, who is that? Sylvia,
please,
Sylvia,
some of us haven't.
Yes. Hello. Who was speaking?
Sheila.
Sheila, okay. So what I was saying is that you will get the video all right. In fact, right now, there is no need for me to continue the recording.